Welcome. This is Gary Russo, a MarkLogic developer. Topic for this screencast is how to add authentication services to a Roxy application. The focus will be adding authentication services to a REST API, although I will show a login on a web form. Just a quick recap of the previous screencast. We talked about a search widget, how to create a MarkLogic search widget, and I used the same data set. It's using this website called Boing. They were nice enough to publish all their blogs as XML documents. If you can recall, I originally was able to ingest this data set. I think there's about 64,000 of these XML documents. From there I created a Roxy application. I'm going to stick with the two-column layout here, and you can see it's returning some search results. Currently logged in. Let me just log out. So I added some code to wire up this section here. I'll walk through the code a little bit and just want to talk about the overall approach. It's really the mechanics of it. Roxy will be incorporating some authentication or some restricted views and security services over the coming weeks. But the approach I used here was actually implemented on some customer sites. So we'll have a user database. Now I got this registration form right here. I could use this to create user accounts, create a new user called John Doe. And this is a very simple web form. I added some controller and a view just to build this user database. So you can see here I am adding these user profile documents. It's in a directory called users. What I'm showing here is also a session document, which is from the login I created. So the user profile, let's take a quick look at what that document will look like. I just have simple bare bones first name, last name, username, and then the password, which is an MD5 hash. You could easily extend this to support roles, add organizations, do some party management if necessary. Long term, I'd like to see an OAuth solution where the passwords are not stored in MarkLogic, but this will do for now. So I'm showing you the directory structure again of all the users. This is the user profile database. It's actually users and sessions. So the general approach is to have this user directory. The user directory will have a user profile XML, which has the password. When a login occurs, a search happens. It looks for the user profile document. If it finds it, then it's going to look at the password. It's going to see if the password matches. If it matches, then it's going to create a session document, and the session document is the one that has the authentication token. So let's take a look at a session document. This is the one that was created when I logged in through the web page, and very simple. It has an expiration date, and this user SID is the token. So this long string here is what is used for all REST API requests. What I showed earlier, I'd like to use this Firefox poster tool for my REST APIs. What I want to do is show you how I would do this using a token. So the nice thing about Roxy is it does have this easy way to create these REST APIs, but let me just show you a simple example. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call a search, just like we did through the web page. And if I do a get, it's going to throw a 401 unauthorized because there was no token provided. Oh, I'm going to provide that token right now, and that's coming from the document. And the source code looks for this really an arbitrary string that we created, but it's called XAuth token. Let me add that to the header. Now when I go do a request, we should get some results. Well, okay, so that was interesting because the token has expired. I've set the token to expire after 5 minutes just for the demo purposes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and create a new login. Let's just do a log out. I'll do a new login right now. Now to do login from the REST API, we just have to add the username and password to the request, but it's going to come in an unusual way. It's going to come in through an authorization header, and that's going to look like this. If you can see that authorization, and then there's this basic with this string here. Let me just add that. Let's try that again. We don't want this piece here. Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a login, and there's the token. I'll show the code on how that was parsed in a minute, but just to show the mechanics now, if I do a search with that token, let me add this new header. So it's a custom header, and it's really this arbitrary string. Let me put the important part, which is the token here. So we're going to add that to the request. I do a search and we should get some results. And there you have it. It's a nice set of results there. 127, just like we had from the web page. To just show that one more time, I'm going to do another login with the Russo password, and I'll get an authentication token. There it is. I'm just going to copy that, and I'm just going to replace it in here. So that's the token, the valid token. Quickly show you that it has created a session document, which is right here. And I want to just show you what that document looks like one more time. And here's that session document. And you can see the token is an attribute, and then the expiration date time is right there as an element. So I showed the mechanics. Let's just quickly take a look at the code. First thing you want to look at is the login. So for the REST API, you have to look here. This is called the request header. Get request header is what parses, extracts that authorization string. You can see it's base 64 encoded, so you call this function to decode it. And then once there, then you got to do a get request header on the username and then a get request header on the password. From there it calls the login. So the login is in the model. If we go here, let's take a quick look at the login source code. It calls this function here called find session by user. And the find session by user. Please feel free to download the code. The blog post has a link to the zip file with all the source code. So here it is, find session by user. And here you can see it's doing an element range query. It's checking the expiration date time. And it's using UTC date time, Greenwich Mean Time. So if you take a look at the code, I do some of the math up here. Here you can see it's set to 5 minutes. And then I do an offset for the UTC time. Some of this code could be cleaned up, but I just wanted to show the mechanics, the basic mechanics of it. Important function here called start session. This is the guy that creates the session document. And let's go take a quick look at that function right here. It creates this token, which I am appending this date time format to the end of the token string. I've had some cases where the JavaScript developer wanted to have that appended to the token so that he would know when they would have to refresh the token. We'll talk about that in a future screencast, but there's cases where, well, the classic example is the remember me cookie. To do this, you'll need to, you never want to store a password in the cookie, you want to store this token in the cookie. But the cookie expires after 90 days, and the token here, in our case, expires after 5 minutes. Typically expires after 24 hours. So there'll be typically some JavaScript or some asynchronous JavaScript call that will go out and refresh the token. So sometimes it'll use that timestamp at the end to know when to get the new cookie. Other interesting points to look at here. The user model, this is the code that was used to create the user profile data. Straightforward, nothing fancy. We got save, update, delete. There's the controller for it here. We talked about here is a REST API versus the web form, and one thing that really Roxy very nice, very easy to do is these Roxy routing rules here. Here's an example. To do the login, you create this routing rule and do login, log out. It creates the endpoint. It tells you what controller to call. In this case, I'm parameterizing the controller. So login comes in. It's going to call this login controller here. Source code we just looked at. It tells you which function in the controller to look at and the format. So straightforward. So this login controller eventually calls this login view. In this case, just returns some JSON. Same thing happens for logout. I don't want to go into that. What I want to show though is the router, because the router code is in this library here, and this is the single point of entry or the checkpoint where all requests come to, and this is the perfect place to apply a security check. And here is the code. It's really straightforward. You can see that there's bypasses for the ping, a login, logout, and this verify thing I just mentioned. Here's the request header. This is what pulls the XAuth token string. Then it calls this function here, find session by token. And this is what's going to determine if the token's valid or not. If not, it's going to throw a 401. Let's go to the authentication code here, and you'll see here it does an element range query again. It's going to check the expiration date time. So it's all rolled into the search. I think that's a clean way to incorporate this expiring token. So if you get a chance, please download the source code. Take a look at this router. This router code is interesting, very worth while taking a deeper dive into it. One thing I want to show you here, I showed this ping, a mention of a ping, and it bypasses the authentication. So if I just show you the ping here, you do a get on this thing, it just returns the simple JSON. This is useful for heartbeat tests on server farms. And if I delete the token from the header, and it still runs. So this is pretty much it. I have the source code. It's very similar to what you've seen, so you should be familiar with everything. Some new controllers that were added. There's this router. Some authentication code is the meat of it right here, and you'll see that it's dependent on this range index, expiration index, but you'll see that from the code. So here, yeah, it's using this expiration range element index that was just added for this user profile data. So that's pretty much where we stand. Just go back to the application, do a quick review. 2-column layout. Got the layout here. I'm going to log in. This login is using a session field just for demo purposes. Session fields should never be used. They're not scalable. Thanks for listening. This is Gary Russo, MarkLogic developer.